Yo, what's good, y'all? It's Turn Up Deontay. I'm back in here with another video. This is actually a project that I got for school. I got this idea from my Jazz Then and Now class, so shout out to Dr. Kelsey Klotz sending me on this deep dive of research. I'm not going to waste a whole bunch of time. Let's get right into it. So I had a couple of things in my personal life that happened that made me want to really reflect on what it means to be a musician, what I'm going to do when I get old enough to retire, and how I'm going to make money afterwards. So I was in a job situation where they had us all sitting in this round circle and they wanted us to talk about what it meant to go to the next level at the staff meeting. But what I noticed was that nobody actually knew what it took to get to the next level. Sure, we could always talk about being on time, knowing your music, learning the material, but what does it actually mean to go to the next level? And I figured out that was pretty nuanced. It depends on what you actually want to end up doing in life. I had another incident that happened for a really high profile gig. I was super excited. I went from playing guitar and singing on this to playing acoustic guitar, electric guitar, bass, foot percussion, auxiliary percussion, had some percussion around my wrist, and singing at the same time. And I even ended up programming some drums so that it'd be easier for all of us to keep time across the stage. Long story short, I ended up getting fired. Why? Not anything that was my fault. Nothing bad happened. Just the creative team decided to not go with the one musician that they hired. I'll never forget the meeting that we had where he sat me down and he said,
Man, I've been doing this for over 50 years. And I've always been able to have control of every aspect of the show. But this is the first time, and you are the first person that I don't have any control over.
This made me feel really good. I love being the one person that you can't control in the room. I just felt like I was really living life at that moment. In that experience happening, I realized that for some people, going to the next level is just doing whatever they say. It's knowing your role and shutting your mouth. For this next level, this next event really laid the foundation for this project that we got going on here. Because my last meeting was with the union representative. Now, the musicians union representative makes sure that I got paid for all of my rehearsals, make sure they reimbursed me for all of the new instruments that I bought, and made sure that I got a severance deal so that I was still getting some money even though I got canceled from the play. But when I saw the breakdown in how much money he was making off of me, my professionalism and expertise, I said, oh, this is the next level. So in this video, we're going to explore what it means to get money from music. Even if you don't play music, even if you've never been a musician before, that's going to show you how people in the publishing world, in the recording arts world, on the record labels make more money than the artists almost ever will because of how they structure the system. Even though this video isn't necessarily about jazz and it's more so about the music business itself, it is about something that we all can relate to: money. And so this entire project is an exploration of me following the money and seeing how it actually started. Who came up with the idea of royalties? What is copyright? What is publishing? What does all of this stuff mean? And what does it mean for you as a creative that wants to break into this industry of forever money?
We follow the money and see where it goes.
We're going to talk about 4 separate ways that people make money without touching the music at all. That's through music publishing, through recordings, sound recordings, through copyrights, and through live performances. Let go. Look at this graph right here. It says 63% of the money that's in music is going toward the label, with the artist dividing the 13% that they're giving between the band, promoters, marketing team, etc. And then we also have another large percentage of the pie that's going just to distribution. Why is it that the artist gets the smallest piece of the pie and everyone gets to eat off of them?
That's just dumb.
This has been going on since well before you and I and everybody else that you know was alive. So in order for us to find the truth about this, we need to go back to the 11th century. Guido, an Italian Benedictine monk and music theorist who was so frustrated with how long it took vocalists to learn the lyrics.
Oh, baby, baby, and it's the wrong words on the cue cards. I don't know the song. This Christmas.
And sing in tune. An issue that still plagues us to this day. So Guido began working on developing a method for teaching the singers to learn chants in a short amount of time with the slightest margin of mistakes. And then that later developed into the 5 lines and 4 spaces that we know and love today, unless you're a guitar player, because it probably makes you want to do this. Now keep in mind that all of this was happening because the monks were solely responsible for making sure that books and music was written down. The only way that you could have these materials is either you memorized it or you got someone to write it down and you got a copy of it. But remember, again, this was before the printing press. So now, as soon as the printing press comes along, guess what? Somebody figures out how to make some money from it. Enter Ottaviano Petrucci, and I really hope that's how you pronounce his name. He is an Italian printer who came up with the idea of establishing copyrights and royalties. How did he do this? Around 1498, he decided to petition to have a monopoly on the music printing press. And for 20 years, he was the only person that was allowed to actually print music from other artists. Now, after that 20 years, he found a way to go ahead and retain some of the publishing rights to it so that he could continue to make money no matter how long the product was in print.
Message!
Now, as you can guess, as the printing press started to get more and more popular, more and more people wanted to get into the business. But that monopoly that he had wasn't going to work for too much longer because everyone wanted to start having a monopoly. So we fast forward to 1710 with the Statute of Anne, which is the first copyright law that came into existence. If you read the beginning of it, it actually says it is an act for the encouragement of learning. Copyright was intended to protect the artists and their work and the right to explore and distribute and do with that work as they saw fit. It was not for other people to profit off of someone else's work, which is what kept happening. If we don't know our history, we're doomed to repeat it. A copyright is an intellectual property granted by a government to the author of an original work that gives them the exclusive right to control how the work is published, reproduced, performed, or displayed, as well as whether or not derivative works may be produced. So what the statute of Anne did was it took the power from the publishers and gave them back to the creators of the actual art. So in 1566, the Edict of Moulins in France required that any new book had to be approved and licensed by the crown. Manuscripts had to first be read and approved by a censor before a permit was given to print a book. The permit could be revoked if officials or influential citizens later complained about what the book had to say. So remember when I said if we don't know our history, we're doomed to repeat it? Keep this in mind. A few authors had the capital and had the leverage and had the gains to mass produce work for artists. So what did those artists end up doing? They ended up selling their entire catalog and all of their copyright in order to get the publishing. Now what usually happened is the artist got a flat fee for their catalog, and then the publisher continued to make money for 20, 30, 50, and now 75 years plus. Before we get out of copyright, we got to talk about 2 other things. There's work for hire and there's fair use. Now, work for hire states that anything that you make while you're on the employee's clock, if they have hired you and you make it and it makes $1 million, that is not your property. That belongs to the label, that belongs to the state, that belongs to your employer. If you make it on their time, that is their property. So if you're a contractor, if you're a musician and the artist wants a lick in a song and you play it, you don't get to claim copyright for that part of the song if you've already been paid as a work for hire musician. That's just theirs at that point. Now, the second thing we need to talk about is the first sale doctrine. So the first sale doctrine means that whoever buys the product first gets to do whatever they want with it for the most part. Now, say if someone says that I bought 100 copies of your book, or I bought 100 shirts of yours, and I decided to go dump them all in the river so nobody else has them. Shout out to 50 Cent and Ja Rule. Then they can do that. It's up to them to distribute it however they want to. Now remember, it wasn't a telephone yet, no recording devices, no microphones, but as soon as all of that stuff starts to get introduced, the game changes dramatically. So let's head over to France real quick. Imagine this, right? You touring, you chilling, you walking into a coffee shop, and you hear a band that's playing a song that you wrote, that you didn't release yet. What would you do if you were in that situation? Well, if you were these people back in the day, you'd sue them, and then you'd win. So that's exactly what ended up happening. And if you do win, you could possibly start a performing rights organization like the one that was started in France, called the SACEM. I'm not going to try to pronounce that and even pretend like I know what that sounds like, because I don't. But either way, it was the first performance pay source that you could get. That was the first organization that was dedicated to making sure that performers were paid whenever their music got played. Now remember, for all of this stuff that we're talking about, we're only talking about written sheet music. Recordings and CDs and microphones, even the telephone wasn't even thought of or invented yet. Let me tell you something that I hope you remember for the rest of this video. Anytime a song is played, somebody's getting paid. One more time. Anytime a song is played, somebody's getting paid. And you wanna hope that that somebody is you, especially if you wrote the song. Even though copyrights were fairly new, they hadn't gotten to the point where they were actually protecting the performers of the copyrighted work. It just protected the person who wrote it and a little bit of the publisher. But the people who actually made the work come into life were pretty much forgotten or work for hires. So they didn't really have anything to do with the copyright. This led to another issue, as if you don't have access to the copyright, how are you going to make forever money? In 1669, Louis XIV granted perpetual monopoly over all operatic performances in France to Jean-Baptiste Lully, the director of the Paris Opera. Lully also gained sole publication rights to opera librettos and sold shares in the rights to printers. He used his copyright privilege to limit the number of musicians who could perform outside of the Paris Opera and to suppress competitors. In the end, Lully became famously rich and bequeathed his monopoly rights to his heirs. How's that for nepotism?
Message!
Now, we're fast forwarding to the early 1920s in America. Sure, you know what was happening in the early 1920s in America. Recording equipment in that time was still very, very early, still very clunky, still bulky, still had a lot of issues, and the only time that it could really be afforded was by rich white people. So those were the people who were in control of the records, the record labels, and everything that had to do with recording music, which was this new phenomenon. So in 1920, a black composer named Perry Bradford went to the record label that he knew at the time and tried to convince them to record a black person, Mamie Smith, a blues singer who blew everybody out of the water. So once black people heard that black people were singing songs and making music, they went wild and started buying up all the records in the stores just so that they could hear black music being played in their own homes. This led to what we call race records, in which some very diabolical stuff was done. Let me talk a little bit about it. Now, it was only after Mamie Smith sold her first 75,000 records and then went on to sell 100,000 records that the label started noticing what was happening with this music phenomenon.
Are you making bank? How many units are you pushing?
So how can we put this delicately? Black music was selling better than any other music at the time, and they had to get in on it. Now, what do you think the main reason was that these race records came into such prominence? Because it was easy to swindle these black entertainers out of their copyright, out of their royalties, out of their forever money.
What's up, Doc?
One for you.
How about me, boss?
Oh, yeah, one for you.
And me, boss.
One for you.
And me, boss?
One for you.
And me, boss.
One for you.
And me, boss.
One for you.
And me, boss.
One for you.
Gee, Rocky, he was certainly kind-hearted.
Now, if you didn't think that was bad enough, it gets way worse, because in the 1920s, they had scouts, like A&R scouts, that were going down south and just recording black people, just recording black music wherever it was, getting a good solid recording, probably not even asking the people their names or where they lived or anything. Then going back home, pressing this music onto some vinyl and selling it like it was their own. So not only did they not do any of the labor, but they profited off of every dollar that came in. America has a few PROs that we know and are aware of: ASCAP, BMI, CSAP. Now, ASCAP, the one that I'm going to talk about, started in 1914 and was supposed to protect the rights of the composers, the performers, so that every time their song was performed or played, they would get their just due royalty payments. Now, remember I said that these people were going in, recording these folks, possibly, if at all, giving them some money to buy the records and then just going off and making their own money? In 1919, the Victor Record Company struck a rare deal with a singer named Enrico Caruso, guarantee him $100,000 a year for 10 years, plus royalties, compared to what a typical performer was getting of a salary of $15,000 and no royalties. Now you might be wondering, how do these performing rights organizations actually track how much music is being played, and if it's being played in a bar or a club or a festival? And if you are wondering if they send spies just like they sent A&Rs back in the day, you'd be absolutely right. That's exactly what happens. There are spies that are sent to track these businesses and organizations to make sure that they have the proper music licensing to be able to play whatever's on their catalog. Playing music in a restaurant or a bar was considered a public performance under U.S. copyright law. So failure to properly license this music could expose the restaurant or business to legal liability, part depending on the size of the establishment. Now, what are the fines for an ASCAP violation? You could pay anywhere from $750 to $30,000 per violation. That might include your court costs and your attorney fees too. So it really depends on whether or not you were intentional about ducking the license or you did it as an accident. But either way, you're gonna pay. The idea of royalties is simple. It's basically money that you get from other people using your ideas, which is considered intellectual property. Royalties are a form of passive income, meaning that you don't have to actually be there or be performing in order to make the money. But as long as your intellectual property is being used, somebody has to pay you. Of course, you know they were going to find out a way to violate this rule too, right?
All that goddamn payola crap. This place is like the Wild Wild West, man.
Now, payola was the practice of DJs being side hired by record executives, A&Rs, managers, artists, recording studios, and publishers. So what these people would do is they would slide the DJ a song, slide them an extra $50, maybe a concert ticket, maybe a hotel room key, other perks, and then their music would get played on more playlists, more people would hear it, it's in heavier rotation. So what's also happening then? More royalties, not necessarily for the artist, but for the publishers, the A&Rs, and the other record executives. So of course, once everything came out, payola became illegal, but it's still pretty much happening to this day. So what did they do to find a solution to that? Instead of making payola illegal and cracking down on it more, they made payola legal and found themselves a loophole. What is this loophole, you might ask? Well, it's something that's pretty exclusive, but it's now available to the common person. And it's called investing in other musicians' royalties. That's right. You can pay for a projected royalty on an artist. Pick a song, pick their catalog, whatever it takes, and you can invest in the royalties that they are getting through a small ownership of the copyright and publishing. Wow. I mean, it's like stock trading for musicians. Like, take your favorite songs and just find them, invest in them, and you can make that kind of forever money too. It's wild. Hey, guess what? You've made it to the end of the video. So shout out to you for being cool and wanting to know more about the music world. And I know that this is not necessarily the brightest star in the sky right now. This is how the music business is. But if you are an artist, if you have an art that you want to protect, that you want to monetize and make money off of for the rest of your life, this is the process that you need to follow. This is what people have been doing for centuries already. There's no reason why your art, your voice, your sound couldn't make you music and couldn't make you money for the rest of your life. Maybe you could pass it along so that other generations up under you don't have to go through the same thing.
Message!
And I'm out this joint, man. I'm done with this video. All right, it's over with. Peace.